They thought it was just another cargo ship. They circled in the dark, ready to board, weapons drawn, confident they'd found an easy target. But they were wrong. Very wrong. Because the ship they attacked wasn't a freighter, it was a Spanish warship. And what happened next? Let's just say it's probably the last mistake those pirates ever made, at least the ones who lived to remember it. On January 12, 2012, a group of Somali pirates tried to hijack the SPS Patiño off the coast of Somalia. What followed became one of the most embarrassing and one of the most brutal blunders in modern pirate history. So what exactly went down that night? How did a group of lightly armed pirates end up squaring off against a NATO warship? And what does it tell us about the golden age of Somali piracy? Let's break it all down. But first, what was the Patiño doing off the Somali coast in the first place? The Patiño is a replenishment oiler of the Spanish Navy, named after the Spanish Navy Minister José Patiño Rosales, who reorganized the fleet on the orders of Philip V of Spain. The vessel was ordered in 1991 from Spanish state-owned shipbuilding giant Navantia and built at their yard in Ferrol, Galicia, which remains its home port. The ship actually has a twin of sorts. It was the product of cooperation between the Royal Netherlands Navy and the Spanish Navy, and its design is similar to the HNLMS Amsterdam of the Royal Netherlands Navy, which was developed at the same time. In terms of specs, the Patiño was built to merchant ship standards. That means it's just over 544 feet long, with a beam of 72 feet and 2 inches and a draft of 26 feet and 3 inches. It has a full load displacement of 19,090 tons and a 6,453-ton light displacement. The Patiño is fitted with two Navantia Burmeister & Wain 16V40-45 diesel engines, driving a single shaft with a 5-bladed controllable pitch propeller. These engines are rated at 24,000 horsepower, giving the vessel a maximum speed of 20 knots or 23 miles per hour, with a range of 13,450 nautical miles or 15,478 miles at that speed. So it's a powerful and sturdy oil tanker, but it's also far from defenseless on the open seas. For starters, as the hapless Somali pirates discovered, the Patiño has a substantial ability to detect potential threats. The ship is fitted with 3 navigation, surface, search and helicopter control radars operating at the I-band, with communications managed through the Integrated Communications Control System 3rd generation from Portuguese electronic defense contractor EID. Once incoming threats are detected, the Patiño sports a range of countermeasures, including 4 Mark 36 SRBOC or Super Rapid Blooming Offboard Chaff, 6-barreled Lockheed Martin Sipican launchers for infrared decoys and chaff, and distraction and deflection of incoming anti-ship missiles to a range of 2 nautical miles. Additionally, it has an AN/SLQ-25A Nixie towed torpedo decoy system from Argon ST. These 2 towed units emit acoustic signals from an onboard transmitter, but for good measure, the vessel is also equipped with Aldebaran Electronic Support Measures Electronic Countermeasure System from Spain's Indra Group. So the ship is quite capable of detecting and dealing with incoming missiles and torpedoes, but what about its ability to attack? The Patiño's weapons systems include 2 Oerlikon 20mm 90 caliber guns, plus the vessel is fitted for 2 ISAR FABA systems Maroka 20mm 120 caliber close-in weapon system. These guns have a rate of fire of 1,440 rounds per minute and a range of up to 2,187 yards, and include an infrared camera and video auto tracker. But crucially, as we'll soon see, the Patiño is also designed to carry up to 5 helicopters. It has a 5,300 square foot flight deck and a hangar on the stern of the ship. Although its normal complement is 3 Sikorsky SH-3 Sea Kings with 19 air crews provided, the vessel can carry a maximum of 2 Sea Kings and 3 AB-212 helicopters at the same time. The Sea King is a US-built twin-engine anti-submarine warfare or ASW helicopter, designed and built by Sikorsky Aircraft. First introduced to service in 1961 to counter the growing threat of Soviet submarines during the 1950s, it was one of the first ASW rotorcraft to use turboshaft engines and served as a key ASW and utility asset for several decades before being replaced by the non-amphibious Sikorsky SH-60 Seahawk in the 1990s. The Sea King has a boat-shaped hull and inflatable pontoons, allowing it to land on water. It can also fold its main rotor blades and tail section for compact storage aboard aircraft carriers and onboard hangars, such as the one on the Patiño. These features enable the Sea King to perform a variety of missions, including search and rescue, minesweeping, serving as the President's helicopter Marine One, and taking out pirates, as we will shortly see. With Sea Kings on board, the Patiño launched on June 22, 1994, and entered service with the Spanish Navy on June 16, 1995, and it was soon in the thick of the action. The Patiño participated in Operation Sharp Guard, a joint mission between the Western European Union and NATO to support the trade embargo against former Yugoslavia. Then, in 1998, the ship participated in Operation Allied Action during the Kosovo War. The Patiño was also involved in a long series of international naval exercises such as Joint Warrior and Seattle Mariner, and also sailed as part of SNMG-1 and SNMG-2, short for Standing NATO Maritime Group 1 and Standing NATO Maritime Group 2 missions respectively. Next, in 2002, the Patiño was dispatched to the Horn of Africa alongside the Spanish frigate Navarra to take part in Operation Enduring Freedom. That's the US government's official name for the global war on terrorism, which began in 2001 in the aftermath of the 9/11 terrorist attacks and continues to this day. And it wasn't long before the Spanish ships were called into action. On December 9, 2002, acting on US intelligence, they intercepted the merchant ship Sosan and demanded it to stop. The captain refused, so Spanish Marines boarded the vessel 518 nautical miles east of the Horn of Africa. They discovered 15 Scud missiles and dual-use chemicals hidden beneath sacks of cement. The San had departed North Korea with these weapons, bound for Yemen. Ultimately, after the Yemeni protest over the seizure of the ship, claiming that the delivery of weapons was legal under existing law, the Sosan was released and completed its journey. But the Patiño's African adventure had barely begun. On December 8, 2010, the Patiño arrived off the coast of Somalia to join the European Union's Operation Atalanta security mission. This is an ongoing, multinational mission under the auspices of the EU's NAVFOR naval force to protect ships from piracy, which was rampant at the time, as we'll discuss in more detail a little later. The Patiño didn't just join Operation Atalanta as any old ship, it was the flagship of the mission. Under the command of Rear Admiral Juan Rodriguez, its first tour lasted for a month and a half until January 21, 2011. But by the end of November 2011, the vessel had returned to the Indian Ocean to commence its second tour of duty as the flagship. It's easy to understand why it was chosen as the primary replenishment vessel. Acting as an oiler, the Patiño carries 6,924 tons of diesel fuel and has 2 supply stations, one on each side of the ship for liquids and solids. But the ship is also capable of stern refueling. Patiño also carries 1,687 tons of aviation fuel and has a 508-ton capacity for solid stores. Additionally, the ship has 1 vertical replenishment supply station, aircraft maintenance workshops, and medical facilities. As a replenishment ship, the Patiño's main role was to support the other vessels involved in the operation with oil and other supplies and to escort ships with humanitarian aid to Somalia due to the ever-present threat of a pirate attack at the time. And it was precisely during one of these humanitarian aid delivery missions that the botched pirate attack took place. As it happens, Rear Admiral Christian Canova of the French Navy had literally just handed over the responsibility of Deputy Operation Commander of Operation Atalanta to Rear Admiral Rainer Endres of the German Navy. It was January 12, 2012. The Patiño was anchored off the Somali coast. It had just successfully completed a mission escorting a World Food Programme ship laden with crucial humanitarian aid to Mogadishu, Somalia's capital. Everything was quiet and peaceful, or so it seemed. On the shore, the pirates were about to make their move. Fortunately, the Patiño's guard duty hadn't been lulled into a full sense of security. At 3:30 a.m., a sentry aboard the Spanish vessel sounded the alarm. He had spotted a skiff alongside the Patiño's hull, with the occupants having the obvious intention of boarding the ship. Suddenly, the calm sounds of the waves lapping against the ship's hull were shattered by the sound of gunfire. The 7 individuals on the skiff opened fire with AK-47s. The next 2 minutes, bullets ripped into the ship's hull and smokestack. At least 50 rounds found their mark. But as we learned earlier, the Spanish warship wasn't exactly powerless to respond. The soldiers on the ship returned fire with the onboard Oerlikon and Marocca guns, hoping to scare off the much smaller vessel and avoid a larger confrontation. But the pirates kept firing. That's when the Spanish decided, enough is enough. As the Spanish Ministry of Defense later phrased it, they decided to neutralize the threat with self-defense fire. They unleashed a larger volley of gunfire, with screams of pain from the skiff confirming that some of the bullets had hit their targets. The skiff turned around and started to flee, attempting to get beyond the range of the ship's guns. But the crew of the Patiño wasn't about to let them get away that easily. Immediately, one of the ship's SH-3 Sea King choppers lifted off. It chased the fleeing skiff for 3,000 yards, warning the pirates with a megaphone while firing at it with the 2 onboard 7.62mm machine guns mounted at its doors. The pirates realized the game was almost up and started throwing incriminating evidence overboard, a common tactic for pirates about to be captured. Altogether, during the chase, they managed to throw overboard 3 ladders, 2 bags, fuel barrels, and 7 AK-47 rifles. But after one final burst of machine gun fire across its bows, the pirates gave up. They stopped the bullet-riddled skiff and surrendered. The helicopter landed next to the skiff and the Spanish soldiers aboarded it. There they captured 6 Somali pirates, 5 of whom were wounded, 3 seriously. The pirates, Mohammed Abdullah Hassan, Mohammed Adam Mohammed, Issa Abdullah Issa, Abdullah Mohammed Guled, Mohammed Saeed, Ahmed and Hamoud El Faf Mahu, all aged 25 to 23, told the soldiers that the 7th crew member had been killed and had been thrown overboard during the chase. The Spanish soldiers took the captured pirates on board the Patiño and gave them the necessary medical treatment in the ship's medical facilities, including leg surgery for one of them. All of them had made more or less full recovery by the time they stood trial, more about that shortly. But what convinced this motley crew of bandits to attack what clearly looked like a warship? In a nutshell, they mistook it for a normal merchant oiler. Perhaps in the pitch blackness of the Somali night they couldn't see the ship's armaments. Perhaps they were all high on Captagon, a type of amphetamine, and thought they were invincible. But clearly they had no idea it could and would fight back in the decisive way that it did. At their trial, the pirates pleaded not guilty, claiming that they were not trying to attack and board the ship, but rather they were fishermen who were lost, hungry, and seeking help. However, the Patiño's hull and funnel, pockmarked with holes from where their AK-47 rounds had struck, tell an entirely different tale. Initially, it wasn't clear where the trial should take place. The EU had reached agreements with countries in the region to imprison and prosecute pirates intercepted in the Indian Ocean as a result of Operation Atalanta. However, a prerequisite for their acceptance was that the prisoners had been arrested in the commission of a crime or that the ship that was attacked must file a complaint. These pirates were most certainly caught in the act, so technically, an African trial should have taken place, but it wasn't so straightforward. In May 2009, the EU signed an agreement with Kenya, granting the African East Coast nation jurisdiction over acts of piracy committed in the Indian Ocean. However, in 2010, Kenya's High Court ruled that the Kenyan government should put on trial only those subjects captured inside its territorial waters. With these jurisdictional developments in mind, after the pirates were apprehended and treated aboard the Patiño, Eloy Velasco, the judge in charge of the Audiencia Nacional of Spain, made his decision about where they should be tried. He ordered the arrested men to be taken to Spain for questioning under charges of piracy, possession of illegal weapons, damage to government property, and assault on members of the security forces. Velasco concluded that although the attack had occurred in international waters, the case fell under Spanish jurisdiction since the assault had been carried out against Spanish citizens, and no current agreement with a third country prevented a Spanish trial. There were no major objections, and the trial commenced in a Madrid court. As it happens, the Kenyan 2010 High Court ruling was overturned by the Kenyan Court of Appeal in October 2012, giving Kenyan courts jurisdiction over the Somalis' trial, but by that time their Spanish trial had already commenced. The Spanish court wasn't convinced at all about the pirates' claims that they were innocent fishermen, victims of unwarranted aggression from the Patiño's crew. It ruled that the men were armed with weapons of war and intended to take control of the Spanish ship in order to seek a ransom. After lengthy proceedings, in October 2013, all 6 men were convicted of piracy and the possession of arms. 5 of them were sentenced to 8 years in jail, with the 6th, Hamoud El Faf Mahu, receiving an additional 4.5 years because he was identified as a member of a criminal organization. However, the prosecution wasn't satisfied with the sentence because the men had been found guilty of attempting an attack. The prosecution felt that rather than an attempt, this had been a full-blown actual attack. This led to an appeal, which the prosecution won, and in April 2014, an additional 5 years was added to each sentence, extending them to between 13 and 17.5 years. That means that depending on when you're watching this video, they're probably still languishing behind Spanish bars today. Considering the dire conditions in the war-torn, poverty and famine-stricken nation of Somalia at the time, it's been suggested that this might not have been such a bad outcome for the pirates. As prisons go, Spain's are not that terrible, and life inside might be significantly easier and safer than the danger and grind of East African pirate life, free board and lodging and all that. But 13 years is a very long time to be locked up. Who knows what will await them back home when they're finally released. What we can say with certainty is that as a result of the efforts of the Patiño, Operation Atalanta, and other anti-piracy missions conducted by the US, EU, and others, the scourge of piracy off the African East Coast has been practically eliminated. Practically, but not quite entirely. Between January and March 2025, Operation Atalanta recorded 3 new incidents of piracy in its areas of operations, all occurring within Somali waters. These included the hijacking of 2 fishing vessels and 1 Yemeni-flagged commercial dhow. The A fourth case, the hijacking of a Chinese fishing vessel, was resolved in 2025, but had actually begun in December 2024. Unlike the others, which ended without ransom payments and saw crews released unharmed, the Chinese vessel was reportedly freed only after a $2 million ransom was delivered via clan elders, according to Puntland government sources. That's a stark turnaround from how things looked 2 decades earlier, before Operation Atalanta and similar initiatives began. Piracy itself has probably been around since man first took to the seas to trade. However, the problem in Somali waters first started becoming a serious issue in the early 2000s, when pirates began attacking international fishing vessels. The attacks then rapidly escalated and expanded to international shipping during the war in Somalia, which took place from 2006 to 2009. But the escalation of conflict between local Somali fishermen and foreign vessels wasn't simply a clear-cut case of brazen criminality. Somalia is estimated to have lost approximately $300 million annually since 1991 due to the unauthorized extraction of marine resources using harmful methods, such as dynamite fishing, which is prohibited in several other regions. That's a huge amount for an impoverished, war-torn country. The coastal Somali communities that spawned the pirates reported that the conflict originated from their need to defend themselves against foreign trawlers, which they allege steal fish and restrict access to traditional fishing grounds. They also claim that the dumping of toxic and nuclear waste from Europe into their waters resulted in severe environmental damage, including the death of children. So many of them don't see themselves as pirates, but rather as the People's Coast Guard. Or maybe it's just much easier to make a ton of money from ransom fees than from subsistence fishing. But whatever the case may be, by the time the US, the EU and their partners launched their initiatives to protect international vessels from these attacks in earnest around 2008 and 2009, Somali pirate attacks were already dominating headlines. Piracy in Somali waters peaked in 2011 when 160 attacks were recorded, with incidents reaching 358 over the 5-year period starting in 2010. However, as a result of these internationally coordinated anti-piracy operations, including Operation Atalanta, Operation Ocean Shield, and CTF 151, the number of attacks off the Somali coast fell dramatically to just 16 in the following years, between 2016 and the early 2020s. Indeed, in the 2020s, the Somali coast is no longer considered one of the main piracy hotspots in the world. In 2024, that dubious honor has shifted eastwards, back to Asia, with 43 incidents being recorded in the Singapore Straits, 22 in Indonesia, 14 in Bangladesh, and 3 in the Philippines. So perhaps a similar incident like the Patiño will quell the activities of Asian pirates. Then again, it's doubtful whether any of them will be foolhardy enough to attack a warship from a tiny skiff with just a few AK-47s. But what do you think? Did the pirates who attacked the Patiño get what they deserved? Will the scourge of piracy ever be completely resolved? And if so, how? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you as always for watching. Now go and check out Somali pirates attack wrong US Navy ship and then this happened, or click this other video instead.